Sylvie didn't know why Stephen was frowning. Did I say something wrong? From what I've seen, your wife can't match up to you. Sylvie was from an aristocratic family. She didn't agree with them valuing men over women, but she did share their emphasis on the importance of suitable family relations. With Stephen's achievements, it wasn't appropriate for him to marry Kim. Neither the Cassidy nor Haynes families had the qualifications to be his relatives. Stephen was on the losing end of their marriage, and it wasn't fair. Stephen looked at Sylvie thoughtfully. Is that so? Then in your opinion, who is worthy of me? Sylvie didn't even need to think about it before answering. There's not that many people who are qualified to be your partner. There are 3 conditions that have to fulfill no matter what. What 3 conditions? First, they have to be mindful of their appearance and mannerisms. Second, they must be financially stable and trained in martial arts. Third, they must have a deep background. At the very least, they have to be from a noble family in Annapolis. There aren't too many women in the country who meet those standards, but it's not like they don't exist. There's one right in front of you. Sylvie held her head high and puffed out her chest, not looking ashamed in the least. She was confident and self-assured. She never cared what other people thought of her. Stephen was momentarily at a loss for words. General Estrella, you're from an aristocratic family. You wouldn't understand us outsiders. I've never thought of myself as having a higher status than Kim, and she's never done that with me either. Love is deeper and more complicated than you aristocrats will ever be able to understand. In aristocratic families, the distribution of benefits and authority was a priority. Marriages were used as a tool to exchange interests. They were so used to mind games and schemes that they didn't understand the concept of love. I don't understand what you're saying, but I don't want to understand either, Sylvie said. But what I do understand is that Kim won't be able to help you. She can't do anything about your condition, but I'm different. I have the capability to help you return to your peak state. That's how important it is to find a partner who's on your level. Stephen wasn't interested in changing her mind, nor did he feel like arguing with her. Let's drop it. You've been treating me for a month, but I haven't gotten better. You should stop wasting your time. You should leave. Wasting your time on me is the same as wasting the country's time. No, Sylvie said resolutely. If I can't help you recover, I'll be letting the country down. My medical skills are lacking, but I know someone who's better than me. You have to get better. I'm waiting for you to defeat Kylan. Stephen already had the means to defeat him, but she didn't know that, and he couldn't tell her. She was insistent and refused to leave. He didn't think his headache would go away anytime soon. Natalie and Kyle threw open the door to their house in Los Angeles and stomped inside. I've never met anyone like her, Natalie complained. She took over someone else's home and acted all self-righteous. What else could we have done? Kyle said. She's the general of the army. She's 1 rank lower than Kylan, and she's just as famous as him. What did Stephen say? Kim asked. Stephen, don't even mention that heartless man in front of me, Natalie grumbled. He barely said a word. He was acting like he was married to that woman. He just sat there like a block of wood, Kyle said. He didn't say anything to defend you, and that woman brought you into the conversation. And to think you treated him so well all these years. Natalie looked at Kim with sympathy in her eyes. Kim, my poor daughter. You should never have married Stephen. He kicked you to the curb the second she showed up. She can just divorce him, Kyle said. If Stephen thinks he can't compare to the general of the army, then let them be together. Kim shouldn't hold on to anyone who doesn't want her. Your dad is right, Natalie agreed. Stay here with Valeria for now. We'll give Stephen a chance. Maybe he'll come around. If he realizes his mistakes, then you can forgive him. Kim was disappointed in Stephen. She just wanted to see him side with her and set boundaries. Sylvie didn't necessarily need to leave. At that moment, Kyle's phone rang. Helen was calling. That was my mother, he said after hanging up. She called to tell me that there's going to be a family meeting tomorrow. She asked us to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning and bring Kim and Valeria along. Did something happen? Natalie asked. I don't know. She didn't tell me the details, but it sounded important. We'll know tomorrow." Something big had indeed happened in the country. While the fiasco with Sylvie was going on, the aristocratic families had ventured outside. The Chevalier family had been one of the first to make their move. The main reason was Jameson and his students' deaths. With them taking the lead, the other families didn't want to fall behind, so they also sent their members outside. All of a sudden, martial artists of unknown origins were wandering the streets. Most of the Chevalier family members were gathered in Washington, D.C. Their target was Stephen, but because Sylvie was living with him, they hadn't taken action yet. She was from the Estrella family. If they acted rashly, a conflict could break out between their two families. But the Chevalier family weren't the only ones in the district. There was another aristocratic family. Stephen found an opportunity to slip away from Sylvie and the guards to contact Aston. In the past, it was rare to see a Grand Master in our country, but now they're everywhere, Aston reported. That means our plan is working, Stephen said. The hidden clans are leaving seclusion. Pay attention to them. If anything happens, let me know immediately. I have a feeling that the hostile factions are about to surface. The next morning, Kim drove Natalie, Kyle, and Valeria to the Cassidy family's residence. They pulled up to the villa at 7:30. The house was already packed. All of the immediate relatives of the Cassidy family were here. This was the first time in forever since Kyle had seen the house so lively. It's rare for the entire family to show up. I wonder what happened. They'll know when we go in, Natalie said. Kim carried Valeria inside. The interior was decorated with lanterns and ribbons. Is someone getting married? Natalie and Kyle shook their heads. Helen noticed them from the back of the hall. She waved at them. Natalie, Kyle, Kim, over here. They squeezed through the crowd and made their way over. What's going on? Kim asked. You'll see, Helen said with a mysterious smile. We have a special guest visiting us today. It's someone you've been missing dearly. Kyle and Kim looked at each other. One person flashed in their minds. Dad? Grandpa? They spoke at the same time, brimming with excitement. The person they'd been missing all these years was Helen's husband, DeAndre Fallon. He was Kyle's father and Kim's grandfather. DeAndre and Helen were completely different. They had many children, but Kyle was his favorite. Kyle had a simple and honest personality. When he was young, he used to be bullied by his siblings for being weak and cowardly. It went without saying that after Kyle married Natalie and had Kim, DeAndre was fond of his granddaughter. They were close, and they spent a lot of time together, until DeAndre suddenly disappeared when Kim was 8 years old. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. Helen had mobilized the entire family and searched for half a year, but there was no trace of him. Eventually, she gave up and announced that DeAndre had passed away. That was when she started to take charge of the family. To stop herself from being fixated on someone who was no longer around, Helen made sure any trace of DeAndre was removed from her life. Nothing was left behind. It was like he'd never existed. DeAndre's name was also erased from their family tree. When Stephen first married into the Cassidy family, he wondered why Helen's husband's name was missing from the ancestry record. Is Grandpa really back? Kim asked, unable to contain her anticipation. When she was young, out of everyone in the family, DeAndre had left the deepest impression on her. After dinner, he would hold her hand and take her out for a walk around the neighborhood and buy her delicious snacks. Mom, where is he? Kyle asked. Take us to him. Helen nodded and motioned for them to follow her. She led the four of them to a conference room. Most of the seats were filled. Harry and Rebecca were almost there. An elderly man with white hair and dressed in embroidered clothes was sitting at the head of the table. This was the true leader of the Cassidy family. His demeanor was one of superiority that made Helen pale in comparison. There was a ring decorated with green gems on his right index finger. It shone under the fluorescent lighting. Dad? Grandpa? Is it really you? Kyle and Kim hadn't seen DeAndre for many years, but they recognized him with one glance. He looked like he hadn't aged a day. DeAndre raised his head at the sound of their voices and held out his arms with a bright smile. Kyle, Kim, come over here. They ran into the room and jumped into his arms. They stayed like that for a long time. DeAndre was the only one who broke the embrace. You were still a child the last time I saw you, Kim. You're all grown up now. How have you been? Before he could get a good look at Kim, he noticed a little girl standing next to them. Valeria blinked at DeAndre, curiosity shining in her eyes. Kim, it's been so many years since we last met. Is this your daughter? Yeah, her name's Valeria. Kim picked her up. Valeria, say hello to your grandpa. Hello, Grandpa. DeAndre's heart melted. She's so cute. She reminds me of you when you were young. Kim was so overwhelmed at seeing her grandfather again that she hadn't taken the time to assess his appearance. He looked the same as she remembered, with some minor differences. Grandpa, you look almost the same as you did back then. The only thing different about you is your hair. It's completely white now. DeAndre laughed. I'm old. That's only natural. You disappeared when I was 8 years old. There was no news from you. We thought you... You thought I was dead. DeAndre finished when Kim trailed off. Kyle nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his arm. You have no idea what we went through when you went missing. It's a long story, DeAndre said. Helen, you should tell them. Helen looked taken aback when he called her out. He was still treating her with respect. It was baffling because she now knew his true identity. But she understood his intentions. He wanted to keep up appearances in front of his favorite son and beloved granddaughter. Kim, Kyle, you'll never guess what his identity is. They gave Helen questioning looks, not knowing what she was trying to get at. The rest of the family in the room were also curious. A while ago, we found out that the upper class in Annapolis has a classification system, Helen explained. There are noble, royal, imperial, and Beaumont families. Everyone knows that the Addams family's ranked first in the country, but it was only after my husband came back that I realized we'd been looking up at the sky through a well this entire time. We weren't able to see the mountain that looms out of sight. There are hidden clans, known as aristocratic families, scattered across the country. They call themselves aristocrats, and either one of their families is superior to the Addams family. The Cassidy family stared at Helen, trying to process the information. My husband is from the Fallon family. It's one of the top 10 aristocratic families to exist. He went missing back then because he went home. The Fallon family? Then did he take on a false surname? Kim asked. The rest of the family had the same question, but no one dared to voice their doubts. DeAndre laughed. That's right. My real name is DeAndre Fallon. If we're being technical, none of you are Cassidys. You're members of the Fallon family. A discussion broke out in the room. Their surname was Fallon, not Cassidy, and their status was much higher than the Addams family. This was mind-blowing. Can you tell us the reason, Grandpa? Kim asked. Sure. Helen will explain the rest. Your grandfather hid his identity when he came to Los Angeles all those years ago. He used a fake name, DeAndre Cassidy, and established our family. That was when he and I met. We fell in love and got married. When your grandfather was the head, we were ranked first in Los Angeles. We might have been considered a royal family, but he kept a low profile and deliberately concealed his true capabilities. But just when I was ready to assist your grandfather and develop our business, he disappeared. I wasn't as capable as him, so our family has been in decline for a long time. But now he's back and will be stronger than ever. He has a high position in the Fallon family. Everyone here is my descendant, DeAndre said. All of you are my bloodline. However, the situation's more complicated than it seems. You'll be keeping your surname for the time being. No one is allowed to change their last name without my permission. Anyone who breaks this rule won't be getting off lightly. There were a few people in the room who were planning to change their last name to Fallon the moment the meeting ended, but his warning put an end to their plans. DeAndre paused and gently pinched Kim's cheek, the same way he had when she was young. But I do have something to announce. Kim is the exception to my rule. I'm going to make her a member of the Fallon family. He bent down and pinched Valeria's cheeks. And her daughter Valeria. Both of them will become part of the Fallon family. The Cassidy family guessed that DeAndre had a significant position in the Fallon family. Not just anyone could add a member so nonchalantly. I didn't think this day would come, Helen said. This is an occasion worth celebrating. Why don't we hold a party to celebrate Grandpa's return? The quick-witted Rebecca suggested. We can use this chance to show the other upper-class families that we're not the same as before. That's a good idea. My husband has been gone for so many years. We should celebrate. Helen looked at DeAndre. What do you think? I'm fine with whatever you decide, as long as you're happy. With his agreement, Helen instructed her subordinates to make preparations. Kim had no interest in Rebecca's attempts at flattery. Grandpa, where have you been all these years? Yeah, where were you, Dad? I missed you, Kyle said. I left because of the aristocrats. We're a group that lives in seclusion. We didn't have a choice back then, but to put it simply, we were forced to sign a covenant that forbade us from interfering with the outside world. When I came to Los Angeles, I had to come secretly. The Fallon family is strict with their rules. After they found out that I left without permission, they sent their people to arrest me. That's why I had to leave without a word. So that's what happened, Kim said. But you're here now. Aren't you violating the covenant? And did they do anything to you when they arrested you? Are you all right? DeAndre patted her head. I'm fine. I have a high status in the family, and I'm strong. Even the head wouldn't do anything to me. When they brought me back, they just kept a tight watch on me. They were worried that I would sneak out again. Then the fact that you're here now means that the covenant isn't in effect anymore? As expected of my beloved granddaughter, you're quick to catch on. Yes, the covenant is no longer in effect. To be precise, it's been annulled. It doesn't have a binding effect over the aristocrats anymore. I can come and go from the outside as I please. No one will come after me for breaking the rules. The Cassidy family was glad to hear that. With DeAndre in charge, their family was sure to prosper. Kim had a feeling that DeAndre wasn't telling her all the details, but with the fanatical atmosphere in the room, she couldn't press him for more information. The celebration of his return was about to begin. At this time, Stephen received a report from Aston. It was related to the hidden clans. The aristocrats had been around for a long time. The hierarchy of the United States had changed multiple times, but the aristocrats had never gotten involved. They remained in the shadows and developed in secret. Their medical technology, academics, martial arts, and more were superior to the outside world. They continued until one particular era of the U.S. was established. That was a time when skilled martial artists ran rampant in the country. They couldn't be compared to the aristocrats, but they were a force to reckon with. Chaos would ensue if the aristocrats and outsiders mixed. The officials of the new era imposed a restriction on the aristocrats, allowing them to roam freely in their territories, but not outside. That was when the covenant was signed. The aristocrats remained in seclusion, while the officials of the U.S. controlled the outside world. The peace was maintained. It couldn't be shaken, even with the passage of time. Both sides abided by the covenant for centuries, but the unknown sparked curiosity. There were aristocrats who were curious about the world outside seclusion, like Jameson, Kylan, and Sylvie. Their status wasn't that high among the aristocratic families, so they didn't attract much attention, until Jameson and his 4 students were killed outside. It was a big deal for an aristocrat's death to take place outside, because even the weakest members could hold their own against the outsiders. The Chevalier family had sent a group to investigate Jameson's death. When they returned in defeat, the entire family was in an uproar. They couldn't believe that the former commander of the U.S. had killed Jameson and his 4 students. The head of the family was infuriated. This is crossing the line. We've been fulfilling our end of the covenant for hundreds of years, but one of their people has killed a member of my family. This cannot be overlooked. The rest of the family started talking all at once. They shouted that they would venture outside and kill the former commander to avenge Jameson and his students. This is an opportunity for us. We've been restrained by the Covenant for much too long. It's time to let loose and experience the outside for ourselves, the family's advisor suggested. Why should the commoners have all the fun while we stay in the shadows? The other party broke the Covenant first, the head of the family said. It won't be considered a violation of the Covenant if we leave seclusion. I'll contact the other clans. I'm positive they'll agree. As he expected, the other aristocratic families supported their plans to end their seclusion. At the same time, they reached an agreement that this was a consequence that came about because of the former commander. After all, the aristocrats gradually started entering the outside world. The Fallon family no longer kept their eye on DeAndre, and he was free to return to the Cassidy family in Los Angeles. Stephen was intrigued by Aston's investigation report. This is a world where anything can happen. I've never heard of a contract with the officials of the U.S. and the aristocrats. Why am I just finding out about this? Because your previous status as the commander-in-chief didn't meet the requirements. But you're the sovereign now. You have the authority to know. So that's how it is. Aston's expression turned grave. This is serious, Mr. Adams. You broke the covenant they've been keeping for hundreds of years. How serious is it? Very serious. The covenant was the main reason our country's been able to live in peace with the hidden clans. The aristocrats are ending their seclusion. They're claiming that you broke the balance when you killed Jameson and his students for no reason. What a load of nonsense. Jameson and his students violated the covenant first and snuck outside. They even colluded with Silas Hahn and endangered our country. Now they're accusing me of starting all this and shoving the responsibility onto me? Calm down, Mr. Adams. The conflict you had with Mr. Jameson was a coincidence that they're using to leave seclusion. They've been hiding away for over a century, but not all of their members have been abiding by the covenant. Some of them came outside from time to time, and there were few in number. I'm guessing they always had the intention to leave their seclusion behind, but they never had a legitimate reason. Stephen thought about it. So you're saying my conflict with Jameson was the excuse they needed to come outside? You could say that. The covenant was broken after several centuries. Someone has to take the blame, and you're the perfect target. It won't be that easy to make me take the blame, but it's true that this all started because of me. I'll deal with the consequences. I'd like to see how far they get. We'll take action if they do anything that puts the people of our country in danger. Aston was looking forward to it. Hellcrown Palace had been around for a while, but they'd never had much interaction with the aristocrats. He, along with Nor, Wes, and Sorov, had been wanting to test their strength against them for a long time. Head back and come up with a plan with the others on how to deal with the hidden clans, Stephen instructed. In a lower voice, he added, Sylvie's back. Stay out of sight when you leave. Aston nodded and disappeared in a flash, just as Sylvie opened the front door and walked in with two elderly men behind her. There was no sign of anyone else having been in the room just moments before. Stephen, I believe you've heard of the aristocrats. Yes, I have. Stephen looked at the elders. Are these two? They're from the Estrella family like me. We're an aristocrat family. They're proficient in ancient medicine, and they're much more skilled than I am. I went back to invite them over to treat you. Sylvie stepped aside to make way for the two elders. You may begin. Wait a minute. Stephen quickly stopped them when they carried their medicine boxes over and were about to reach for him. These were expert doctors from the Estrella family. He wouldn't be able to hide his condition from them. You don't have to examine me, he explained. I was poisoned by Devil Hall. The poison they used is special, and I have a sample of it. Can you check the sample first? You have a sample of the poison? That would be great. We can study the poison directly. Where is it? They asked impatiently. Relax, I'll get it for you, Stephen said. Sylvie came forward. I'll help you. She pushed his wheelchair to a cabinet in the inner room. Stephen told her to take out a box from inside the cabinet. Sylvie did as he instructed and gave him the box. She stared at it with an inquisitive look. Is this really a sample of the poison from Devil Hall? How did you get this in your condition? I know what you're thinking, but it wasn't that hard. Sylvie didn't say anything else and pushed Stephen out of the room. He handed the box to the doctors. This is the sample. They took the box with eager hands as if they'd found an ancient treasure to study. Stephen watched them closely. He'd defeated Devil Hall twice, but he still knew nothing about them. Where did they come from? What was their background? If these doctors researched the poison, maybe the mystery would be solved. There were many hostile factions targeting the U.S., but the greatest threat was Devil Hall. The doctors were still deep in their research after an hour. How's it going? Have you found the source of the poison? Stephen asked. Sylvie clenched her fists. Where is it from? Overseas? When we find out the true identity of Devil Hall, I'll make sure I get rid of them for good. No one targets the commander and gets away with it. Miss Sylvie, don't get agitated, one of the doctors said. The poison isn't from overseas. To be exact, it's from the United States. Sylvie and Stephen couldn't quite believe it. Are you sure? The other doctor nodded with certainty. We took so long with our research because we wanted to verify it. Devil Hall has modified the poison several times to cover up its origin, but it wasn't difficult for us to figure out. The poison can only be created in our country's territory. Devil Hall was cunning. They tried to modify the poison to make it seem like it came from overseas. Most people wouldn't think anything of it. Stephen frowned. Is Devil Hall from the United States? If this were true, then one of the forces within the country was dissatisfied with the way things were run. They banded together and formed the temple, which later became known as Devil Hall by their people. The organization was hidden so deeply that it was nearly impossible to conduct a proper investigation. Perhaps they originated from one of the hidden clans. When Stephen was on the rooftop of the island state's spirit tower, Silas refused to reveal Devil Hall's identity, even in the face of death. That was more proof that Devil Hall was a fearsome organization. Do you have any guesses about their identity? Sylvia asked. I don't know, but there's one thing I am certain of. When I was the commander, I made a lot of enemies, both in the country and overseas. With this line of thinking, Devil Hall might have been founded because they held a grudge against me. Sylvie scoffed. Sounds like they're cowards who couldn't confront you directly, so they created an entire organization to take you out in secret. I don't care what background they have, Stephen said. They've plotted against the entire country more than once. I'll find them and get rid of them once and for all. He'd been feeling guilty over unintentionally violating the covenant between the U.S. and the aristocrats, but it wasn't all that terrible of a mistake. If the hidden clans ended their seclusion, it would encourage the remaining hostile factions to emerge from hiding. At this time, a lively celebration was underway at the Cassidy family's residence. Everyone wore a proud smile on their faces. DeAndre had returned, and they'd found out they had a connection with the Fallon family. They'd upgraded from an unknown wealthy family to an aristocratic family. Their position was even higher than the Addams family. The celebration was extravagant, and DeAndre enjoyed it. The hidden clans rarely had dynamic celebrations like this. He toasted the family before taking a seat at Kim's table. They had a pleasant chat until the topic of conversation shifted to Stephen. Natalie complained without restraint. That bastard, DeAndre cursed. He's abandoning his wife and daughter and chose another woman? Kyle joined in. That's not all. He thinks he's all that just because he's the owner of the Wyvern Group, the company that became the foundation for Kim's business. That's not why he's full of himself. It's because he's the former commander-in-chief, DeAndre corrected. As an aristocrat, he was familiar with the higher-ups of the country. But the Cassidy family wasn't as well informed. This was shocking news. That good-for-nothing used to be the commander? They'd heard that Stephen had gone to Annapolis to attend the ceremony when the sovereign was appointed, but they thought he went to pretend he was an invited guest. Helen, Harry, and Rebecca were even more enlightened. That explained how Stephen had gotten his hands on 3 sets of souvenirs from the ceremony. "That doesn't change a thing," DeAndre said. "He's nothing in front of the aristocrats. The Fallon family has no reason to fear him." Kylan and Sylvie, who had both left seclusion and risen up the ranks in the military on the outside, were also from the hidden clans, but DeAndre didn't think too much of them. He put them in the same category as the former commander. DeAndre's confidence shook the Cassidy family out of their trance. He was right. So what if Stephen was the former commander? DeAndre was from an aristocratic family, and he held a high position. "Stephen's past positions aren't important," Natalie said, directing the conversation back on track. "He's living with General Sylvia Estrella. She said Kim's not worthy of him because her background is lacking." "What did Stephen say about that?" DeAndre asked. Natalie's anger returned in full force as she remembered the events from last night. "He didn't say anything. He just went along with everything Sylvie said." "That's ridiculous. I won't let anyone look down on my granddaughter. Kim, don't worry. I'll be supporting you now that I'm back. You'll be a member of the Fallon family soon. An outsider isn't worthy of you." Kim tried to calm him down. "Grandpa, don't listen to my parents. The situation isn't as serious as they make it sound. We're just having a lover's quarrel. It's normal for a husband and wife to argue sometimes." "It's fine. You don't have to force yourself to defend him. I know you better than anyone. You would have never walked out of that house if he didn't do something out of line. When Stephen was still the commander-in-chief, even the Fallon family would have to treat him with respect. But he's not the commander anymore, and he's disabled. We have a right to confront him." Valeria chimed in. "Daddy is not the commander anymore. He's the sovereign." "Where did you learn to lie?" Kyle scolded. "Who else could it be?" Natalie said. "Didn't you hear what she said? It had to have been her father." DeAndre wasn't interested in Stephen's parenting skills. "Speaking of the sovereign, we're investigating him." "The aristocrats want to figure out his identity?" Helen asked. "Yes, it's not just the outsiders who want to know. We're even more curious than them." "What did you find out?" "Unfortunately, we haven't found any clues. We carried out a thorough and careful investigation, but there were no leads. This is the first time we've encountered such a mystery." The Hidden Clans' intelligence network was extensive. If even they couldn't dig into the sovereign's identity, who could? "Right now, there's nothing we can do about that," DeAndre continued. "But we are certain of one thing. The sovereign isn't an outsider. We speculate he's an aristocrat. A clan that has the capabilities to raise and train someone like him had to have existed for at least 3,000 years. They're most likely powerful enough to overthrow any era." If DeAndre's words were true, then the sovereign was strong enough to compete with the Hidden Clans. He might even be slightly above them. Stephen was Terrence's illegitimate son, but he was never given their family's resources. The Adams family's blood flowed within him, but he was no different from an ordinary citizen. Becoming the commander-in-chief was his limit. He couldn't be related to the sovereign. Valeria's claims were nothing but a child's nonsense. The Cassidy family started mocking Stephen again. "Everyone quiet down," DeAndre said. They stopped talking at the same time and looked at him. "I have something to announce. Starting today, I'll be using my real name, DeAndre Fallon, but I'll always be a member of the Cassidy family. I'll give you my full support." Helen almost cried with joy. DeAndre's declaration was equivalent to him joining the outside world as a member of the Fallon family. It had been difficult for her to maintain the Cassidy family's status alone, but she felt much more confident with DeAndre around. Kyle was also in a good mood. "Dad, are you staying for good?" "Yes, I won't be leaving again. No one will be coming to arrest me." "I'm glad to have you back," Kim said. "I missed you all these years." DeAndre smiled. I missed you too. Kim thought about Stephen's condition and Sylvie's treatment, which didn't seem to be working. By the way, Grandpa, do you know anyone who's skilled in ancient medicine? You've come to the right person. The Fallon family's ranked second in ancient medicine expertise. No one has ever claimed the first rank. Not even the Estrella family? Their martial arts are more focused on weaponry, but they do have a deep understanding of ancient medicine. Their knowledge is still inferior to the Fallon family, though. Really? Is there anyone in your family who can help Stephen recover? There should be, but I'm curious as to what kind of person your husband is. The former commander-in-chief shocked the world with his sudden appearance. I'd like to meet him. Just how incredible is he to have abandoned his wife and daughter for some woman who came out of nowhere? Helen spoke up. That's right. We can't accept this so easily. We'll have to make him understand that he's messed with the wrong people. DeAndre was back, and she'd just learned that they were related to the Fallon family. She couldn't pass up the chance to show off their connection. If Stephen wants to abandon his family, he'll have to answer to me, Kyle said. Natalie turned to Kim. Bring Valeria and let's go together. With your grandfather around, what's there to be afraid of? Forget it, I'm not going. I don't want to see Sylvie right now. We'll just have another argument. Natalie didn't force her. DeAndre and the rest of the family would be enough to teach Stephen a lesson. And so, the Cassidy family surrounded DeAndre as he made his way to the airport. At the villa, Stephen and the two doctors from the Estrella family were discussing the poison from Devil Hall. Can you figure out who specifically developed this poison? Stephen asked. Not right now. We'll have to head back and investigate further. It won't take us too long to develop an antidote. Thank you so much. Stephen handed the doctors the sample, and they left in a hurry. He didn't waste any time and looked at Sylvie. General Estrella, I've given them the sample. They'll have the results soon. I don't think it's necessary for you to keep staying here. Sylvie shook her head. It is necessary. I have to stay here to make sure you're safe before the antidote is developed. Stephen sat back and ran a hand through his hair, trying not to let his frustration show. Why was it so hard to chase Sylvie away? Several hours later, the Cassidy family arrived. DeAndre eyed the security guards at the gate with a disapproving look. Does Sylvie already consider herself Stephen's wife? She went through such lengths to surround the house with guards. Natalie fanned the flames. Exactly. She's pretending like Kim doesn't exist. The security guard noticed the large group and went up to kick them out. Hey, what are you doing? Loitering is prohibited. DeAndre regarded him with a smile. There's nowhere I can go. His subordinates rushed out of the group and effortlessly knocked down a few security guards. The others heard the commotion and hurried over, but Sylvie's guards were no match for DeAndre's subordinates. Stephen and Sylvie heard the commotion from inside the villa. They went out to see what was going on. Stephen was surprised to see that Natalie and Kyle were back, and they weren't alone. They were with the rest of the Cassidy family. There were some faces he didn't recognize. The elderly man in the lead had an aura he'd never sensed from anyone in the Cassidy family. Under normal circumstances, they would have never come in contact with a martial artist that skilled. What was their connection? Stephen didn't know the elderly man's identity, but Sylvie could tell with one glance. The hidden clans were very familiar with each other's family's martial arts. Are you a member of the Fallon family? Your eyes are sharp, DeAndre said. You saw through my identity and background with one look. You must be Sylvie Estrella. Sylvie tensed. His aura was menacing. That's me. Why are you here? Stephen was in disbelief. The elderly man surrounded by the Cassidy family was an aristocrat. It wasn't strange for him to be outside seclusion, but why was he with them? The Cassidy family was a wealthy family based in Los Angeles, but to win the support of an aristocrat, they would have to be at least a royal family. From your tone, you make it sound like you're the owner of this house. Sylvie wanted to correct DeAndre, but the words wouldn't come out. He shifted his gaze to Stephen. Stand aside. I'm here for him. Sylvie didn't protest. She was acting completely different from the way she had for the past month. DeAndre's aura was intimidating and pressuring. It forced her to listen. She stood to the side. Stephen narrowed his eyes. You're looking for me? Sir, I don't think we know each other. You may not know who I am, but I know you all too well, DeAndre said. Helen's tone was proud as she took over. Stephen, let me introduce you. This is my husband, DeAndre Fallon. He's Kim's grandfather, and he has a high position in the Fallon family. Stephen was stunned to hear that. That means Kim is part of the Fallon family's bloodline. That's right, Natalie confirmed. You should know by now that Kim's from a prestigious family. Her status isn't low. Her grandfather even said he would make her and Valeria official members of the Fallon family. With DeAndre on their side, Kyle was more confident than the last time they were here. You abandoned Kim and her daughter because her status wasn't up to par. What about now? Is an aristocrat still not good enough for you? Sylvia averted her gaze awkwardly. She had said that Kim didn't deserve Stephen. This would still be true if Kim was an outsider, but she had the blood of an aristocratic family. Her status wasn't one to scoff at. Even Sylvie had to admit defeat. Natalie walked up to Sylvie with her hands on her hips. Did you hear that? Kim will become a member of the Fallon family soon. Do you still think she can't match up to Stephen? Natalie turned to Stephen. And you. Kim never left you and stayed by your side even when those times were hard. Open your eyes and take a good look at the situation around you. This is Kim's property. What right do you have to chase her out and let some unfamiliar woman in? That's not... The rest of the Cassidy family jumped in. They didn't give Stephen a chance to speak and started ridiculing him. DeAndre waved his hand, signaling for them to stop. They instantly quieted down. Stephen, right? If you were still the commander-in-chief, you would have been only second to the sovereign. I could have invited you over as a VIP guest, because the commander is a position that's worthy of Kim. But things have changed. What qualifications do you have to make me satisfied with you being her partner? Helen interrupted. I never thought that people could stoop this low. He abandoned his family and didn't bat an eye. He's a real piece of work. It felt good to have the upper hand over Stephen for once. She tried to get back at him multiple times in the past, but never succeeded. Stephen rushed to explain. Grandma, listen to me. That's not what happened. I didn't abandon Kim and Valeria. I have my reasons. I'll tell you when the time comes. After Stephen answered them, What reason could you possibly have? Natalie asked. It's more likely that you abandoned Kim and Valeria because you want to take advantage of Sylvie's family. DeAndre nodded. She's an aristocrat, and her family has medical resources that aren't found here. It's not surprising that Stephen made this decision. Kim's not just some outsider, Kyle said. Her status is far superior to Stephen's. It's not worth it to waste your energy on a good-for-nothing like him. DeAndre's aura intensified. That's true, but Kim is my granddaughter. He abandoned them. I'll have to teach him a lesson. We have to make him understand the consequences of abandoning his family, Helen echoed. The rest of the family chimed in. Grandpa is right. If we don't teach him a lesson today, he'll keep looking down on us. We're not the same family we used to be. While they were criticizing him, Stephen tried to make sense of DeAndre. It was astonishing to learn that he was Helen's husband. They were nothing alike. Not to mention, DeAndre was an aristocrat, and they saw themselves as superior to outsiders. How did he get tangled up with someone like Helen? What Stephen didn't know was that when DeAndre was young, he was curious about the outside. He secretly ran away and met Helen. The two of them had fallen in love at first sight. I could have made you pay with your life, but I don't see the point when you're already disabled, DeAndre said. Then what do you want? Stephen asked. I don't want your life anymore, but I could break your legs instead. Sylvie stood in front of Stephen when DeAndre's subordinates were about to make their move. Mr. DeAndre, I respect you as a member of the Fallon family, but that doesn't mean you can act out of line. Her guards came forward and faced off against DeAndre's subordinates. DeAndre didn't think Sylvie would go against him.
Do you know who I am? The aristocratic families are independent, but we do have a close relationship. According to seniority, your grandfather and I are of the same generation. Do you really want to offend your elders?
I don't care if your status is higher than mine, Sylvie shot back. You can't lay a hand on this man as long as I'm around. She called out to her troops. They stepped up at her command. Sylvie's Shield Maiden Battalion was an army of female soldiers. Their reputation overseas was on par with Stephen's Armored Cavalry Battalion and Kylan's Iron Blood Battalion. Their auras intimidated the Cassidy family. DeAndre was an exception. He looked displeased.
Are you trying to scare me? Outsiders can't compare to aristocrats.
That may be true, but we won't let any harm come to the former commander, Sylvie declared.
Your determination's admirable. All right, on account of your bravery, I won't deal with Stephen today.
DeAndre wasn't afraid of Sylvie. Even if he killed her, the Estrella family wouldn't do anything to him. But that was limited to the aristocrats. On the outside, Sylvie had another identity. She was the general of the army. The country would be turned upside down if she was killed. The covenant had been annulled, and hidden clans were leaving seclusion, but they didn't want a direct confrontation with the country. Back then, the officials had forced them to sign a covenant to prevent both parties from interfering with each other. The aristocrats were superior, but the country's trump cards couldn't be taken lightly.
Stephen, I'm letting you go for today, but you're not allowed to come near Kim and Valeria anymore, DeAndre said. Although it's not impossible to see them again if that's what you want, your status has to match up to Kim's. For example, return to your previous position as the commander-in-chief.
Natalie expressed her agreement.
Kim is a member of the Fallon family. Her partner should meet certain standards.
The Cassidy family thought this was a genius idea. Kim's status had soured in the span of a few days. Stephen would regret his decision to abandon her and come look for her, but it wouldn't be easy. If he couldn't go anywhere without his wheelchair, he would never be able to take back his old position. It was an impossible task.
Did you hear that, Stephen? Kyle asked. The only thing you know how to do is hide behind Sylvie. You let her come between you and your family and did nothing to stop her. You even went as far as to kick them out. What about now? Do you regret it? If you want to see them again, I suggest you beg Sylvie to help you recover. But even then, it'll depend on your luck. Unlike Natalie and Kyle, DeAndre wasn't one for meaningless chatter. He said what he had to say and left the villa. The Cassidy family followed him out. It took a few minutes for Stephen and Sylvie to process what had just happened. I never expected the Cassidy family to be related to the Fallon family. What connection do they have with DeAndre? Sylvie thought for a moment before asking her intelligence network to investigate DeAndre's identity. What are you planning to do now? She asked Stephen. If Kim was still an outsider, the situation wouldn't be as annoying. But her grandfather was an aristocrat. They had to tread carefully. After a month of treatment, there was still no improvement in Stephen's condition. Sylvie's confidence was beginning to wane. She hoped the two doctors from her family could develop an antidote soon.
General Estrella, I know what you're thinking, Stephen said. But this is between me and them. You don't have to worry about it.
The divine sovereign position would be more than enough to satisfy DeAndre. Sylvie's intelligence team sent her a message. DeAndre is the uncle of the Fallon family's leader, which makes Kim the leader's direct relative.
In other words, DeAndre's words represent the leaders. Is that what you mean? Stephen asked.
You could say that. If it weren't for DeAndre, the current head wouldn't have gotten that position. Stephen heaved a sigh. Things had spiraled out of control.
In just one night, an unknown wealthy family from Los Angeles rode the coattails of a hidden clan and overtook the Beaumont families in Annapolis.
Sylvie hadn't gotten over her shock yet either. It was a miraculous story that happened once in a blue moon. While Stephen was lost in thought, an idea came to him.
General Estrella, the two doctors from your family are researching an antidote from the sample I gave them. Your treatment's ineffective, and the Cassidy family has DeAndre on their side. If they come looking for trouble again, would you be able to hold them back?"
Sylvie hesitated.
"The times have changed. The hidden clans are leaving seclusion. I'm not the commander anymore, and I'm disabled. I'm not a threat at all. It's more important to investigate the source of Devil Hall's poison. That way we can speed up the doctor's research on the antidote."
"You're right," Sylvie conceded. "Your condition will remain the same if the poison's not removed. Developing an antidote is our priority. It's been confirmed that the poison originated in the U.S., so I'll personally carry out an investigation. I won't be staying here anymore. Take care of yourself." Stephen resisted the urge to smile triumphantly.
"I will."
It had been a while since he was cured, but he couldn't let her know that. Nevertheless, the poison was the perfect excuse to get her to leave on her own. And Sylvie wasn't the general of the army for nothing. She could achieve twice the results with half the effort. She would investigate on the surface, while he would analyze her findings from the sidelines without drawing attention to himself. Sylvie was swift and decisive. "I'll pack up and leave in the late afternoon. I'll leave some of the guards behind to protect you."
"No problem,"
Stephen said. Without Sylvie around, things would be much simpler. A few security guards weren't an issue. Whether they were from her battalion or the Estrella family, he could easily send them away or slip away undetected. Later in the day, DeAndre and the Cassidy family returned to Los Angeles. Kim had been waiting anxiously at home. She was disappointed in Stephen, but she didn't want anything to happen to him. DeAndre was an aristocrat, and Stephen wasn't the commander-in-chief anymore. She was worried that things would escalate and get out of hand.
"Daddy will be fine,"
Valeria said.
"Don't worry."
"I hope so." The door opened with a creak. DeAndre walked in with the Cassidy family as his escorts. Kim hurried up to them. "Grandpa, you're back. Did anything happen?"
"Look at you,"
Natalie said disapprovingly.
"Why are you so worried about that man when he abandoned you? The only thing he knows how to do is hide behind Sylvie."
"Before her, he relied on Kim," Kyle added. "At this rate, he'll be relying on people for the rest of his life." Kim ignored their sarcasm and looked at DeAndre for an answer.
"Don't worry, I didn't do anything to him. I was going to teach him a lesson, but that girl from the Estrella family protected him. She's the general of the army. This is the only time I'll be lenient."
Kim was relieved that nothing much had happened. "Did Stephen say anything?" Kyle scoffed. "Not really. With Sylvie around, there's nothing he's unsatisfied with." "Did he really not say anything?" "He didn't. I'm your father. Why would I lie to you?" Kim frowned. She was somewhat doubtful. Her parents had a tendency to exaggerate.
"Don't mind Stephen's attitude," DeAndre said. "He's hiding behind Sylvie because he's afraid of me, but that doesn't mean he doesn't miss you and Valeria. After everything he's done, it won't be easy for him to see you two again. I told him he has to prove that he's worthy of being your husband."
"But Stephen's not an aristocrat," Kim protested. "How is he supposed to meet your standards?"
"That's simple. He at least needs to take back his previous position as the commander-in-chief. If he can do that, I'll let him see his family again."
"What are you saying? That's just making things difficult for him. It's not like you don't know about Stephen's condition. Being able to stand and walk will already take a miracle. But you want him to go back to how he used to be?" DeAndre wasn't fazed by her outburst.
"I'm making things difficult for him? You treat him too well. You're always on his side, and when has he ever been on yours? When I was at your house, he didn't say anything to defend himself, nor did he speak up for you. He hid behind Sylvie the entire time."
Kim tightened her grip around Valeria. There was no changing DeAndre's mind. He was from the Fallon family, and he had the authority and the means to prevent Stephen from seeing her and Valeria again. Valeria didn't share her concern. She didn't think it was an impossible condition for Stephen to fulfill.
"Mommy, do you want to see Daddy? He'll accomplish his mission and come see us soon."
No one believed her, not even Kim. The day after DeAndre imposed a condition on Stephen, the Fallon family officially announced their public entry to the outside world. The Chevalier and Estrella family had already made their presence public. The Cassidy family rose to the top of the ranks in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. The Haynes family, who were their closest relatives, had also benefited from this. They were ranked after the Cassidy family. Kim and Valeria's values skyrocketed after becoming members of the Fallon family. With the aristocrats announcing their exile, the Beaumont families were no longer worth mentioning. The Chevalier, Estrella, and Fallon families had ventured outside. The other aristocratic families didn't want to fall behind, but they couldn't carelessly make a move. They needed to find a faction on the outside to support. For example, the Fallon family had the Cassidy family. In a short period of time, upper-class families in the United States had become the aristocrats' targets. They welcomed the attention. If they received support from an aristocratic family, their status would soar, and they would automatically have the qualifications to rival Beaumont families. Following the Chevalier, Estrella, and Fallon families' arrival on the outside, the higher-ranked families began to decline. Even the Adams family had become an ordinary existence. The appearance of all the hidden clans had a strong influence over the country. They had the power to promote ordinary families to a level that was on par with the Beaumont families. The aristocrats weren't the only ones who wanted their share of the benefits. There were other factions that had started to move. The commotion naturally attracted Stephen's attention. Without Sylvie, he could easily shake off the security guards and have a meeting with the four guardians.
Aston, give me a rundown on the situation, Stephen said.
The aristocrats have annulled the covenant. This is a good opportunity for us. They used to be restricted, but now they're free to venture outside. The factions we're looking for view these changes as a chance for them to emerge from hiding.
The more conspicuous the aristocrats are, the faster we'll reach our goal.
Aston nodded. Yes, I have a feeling that most of them will be showing themselves very soon. We'll catch them in one fell swoop when the time comes.
All right, keep an eye on the situation. This farce will be over once we take care of them.
Stephen didn't dwell on DeAndre's restriction. If he wanted to see his family, no one could stop him. As the aristocratic families ended their seclusion, other factions took the chance to follow their lead. One of the factions gathered at a club located on the outskirts of Annapolis. A masked group sat around a rectangular table. The seat at the head of the table was empty. The door swung open, and a man wearing a similar mask walked in. Everyone stood up and greeted him, addressing him as Mr. Raphael. Raphael was the mysterious founder of the Temple, an organization that was more commonly known as Devil Hall. He'd taken advantage of the aristocrats making their grand entrance on the outside to secretly come to the surface. He was cautious and made sure to cover up his organization's tracks. There weren't many people who knew that Devil Hall was among the masses. Raphael took a seat at the head of the table and gestured for them to sit. No need to be so polite. Everyone took their seats. I've gathered you all here today to make an announcement. Raphael signaled to the right envoy of light, who was standing next to him. We've been paying close attention to the newly appointed sovereign, the right envoy began. His background is unknown, and we haven't been able to investigate him. Everyone started to discuss amongst themselves. The sovereign was their biggest threat. His identity is a mystery, but it's not that concerning. In my opinion, he was appointed as a figure of intimidation. If he was really that capable, we would have found him already. I suspect that the sovereign doesn't actually exist, but even if he does, he's no match for us. The right envoy of light's analysis was detailed and reasonable. Everyone's worries vanished. Next on the agenda is the former commander-in-chief. Rest assured, according to our reliable intel, he's disabled and will remain that way for the rest of his life. There's no possibility of recovery. The Estrella family has sent their physicians to examine his condition, but even they couldn't treat him. That was good news for everyone at the table. The fewer threats there were, the easier it would be for them to make their move. The right envoy's expression turned solemn. There's one last thing. It's the most important topic for today. We came here because we accepted a mission from the Robinson family in Warhawk.
This is the first time we'll be collaborating with a tycoon from there. We have to make sure this mission is a success. That's the only way to make sure our cooperation continues." Everyone glanced at each other, not looking concerned in the least. The mission would be a piece of cake. The Red Envoy of Light was being overdramatic. "Is that all? What's with the serious tone? We'll complete the mission. We've been in seclusion for so long. It's been a while since we've had any fresh air. Give us a moment to stretch our arms and legs. It's just a theft mission. It'll be easy." "I suggest you keep your guard up," Raphael warned. "The Robinson family's hired us to steal an item. They don't take a liking to just any ordinary object. There has to be something special about it. According to our intel, the Leviathan unit will be overseeing the transport." "Is that important?" one of them asked. "The aristocrats and other organizations have come to the surface recently. They're all stronger than the Leviathan unit." "We just need to complete the mission to receive our reward," someone else said. "It's not like we'll need to personally take action anyway." Raphael nodded in satisfaction. "It's good that you understand, but keep in your mind that if you're exposed, the officials of the U.S. will open an investigation on you. Don't forget, you're traitors. Everyone here has colluded with the enemy overseas and participated in grand schemes that put the country in danger." The people at the table were wanted criminals in the United States. They'd avoided being captured and had been living in seclusion all this time. They'd been hiding for a chance to come outside. "Don't worry, Mr. Raphael," someone said. "We're not that stupid. We've survived to this day, haven't we? We'll be sure to witness the United States' demise with our own eyes." Everyone else was thinking the same thing. They'd managed to avoid detection by chance, but the longer they lived in exile, the deeper their resentment against the country began. Raphael smiled. "I'm glad to hear that. Now, let's come up with a plan." At the Robinson family's conference room in Warhawk, Adler Robinson was pointing to a location on the map displayed on the projector. The area zoomed in, and an island came into view. "This is Mirage Island in the U.S. Based on the intel from Warhawk's reconnaissance aircraft, there's a research center on the island. We don't know what they're researching, but it will benefit their military. If they succeed, their army will be as strong as Warhawk's." "I apologize for being direct," someone in the room called out. "But is this related to Warhawk's military? What does this have to do with us?" Someone else spoke up. "Use your brain for once. Where do you think this information came from? Mr. Adler planted spies in Warhawk's military a long time ago. If we snatch the United States' research before the military gets their hand on it, we can sell it at a high price." "That's correct," Adler said. "I've already made arrangements and contacted an organization in the U.S. for assistance. To increase our chances of success, we'll be stepping in as well." Meanwhile, the Leviathan unit was at Stephen's villa. They'd come in a hurry. It was similar to the last time they came to inform him that Devil Hall was launching their second attack. The Leviathan unit greeted Stephen quickly and got straight to the point. "We have an urgent mission for you. We'll be transporting a batch of goods from Mirage Island. We need you to assist the escorts." "Is the situation that dire?" Stephen asked. If the Leviathan unit was requesting his help, the goods must be important. "Yes, the batch of goods has been exposed. We must immediately relocate them. There's no time to lose. If you're ready, we'll head out to meet up with the escort team. We'll explain the details on the way." "I understand." Stephen didn't hesitate and left with the Leviathan unit. They slipped past the security guards and boarded a helicopter that belonged to the unit. They headed for Mirage Island. "There's a research center in Mirage Island," the leader of the Leviathan unit explained. "They've recently developed a drug that can modify genes. One's physique can be strengthened within 3 months of taking the drug. Warhawk has discovered its location of the research center. The island isn't safe anymore. We have to transfer the research materials as soon as we can." This was a military secret that Stephen hadn't heard before. A drug that can strengthen one's physique? It'll be revolutionary when it's completed. If the drug was mass-produced, it would be a groundbreaking product.
If a smaller and weaker country were equipped with the drug, its military could become strong enough to be a world power. It wasn't surprising that a powerful country like Warhawk wanted it for themselves.
If Warhawk knows about it, why haven't they sent their troops and attempted to steal it? Stephen asked.
Warhawk isn't the only one who has their eyes on the research, the leader of the Leviathan unit explained. If they sent their troops, there will be an international focus on Mirage Island, and there's a risk that someone else will get to the research before they do. They're trying a different approach. According to our intel, Warhawk's mainstream media reporters are waiting for us to send out our troops and transport the research. They'll spread misinformation that the research is a virus that we're secretly developing to turn public opinion against us. We'll be forced to publicize the details of our research.
I see. That would put us at a disadvantage.
Yes, that's why we'll be keeping a low profile and sending out an escort team of less than 50 people. Everyone in the team is a member of the Leviathan unit. We've been deliberating our options and came to the conclusion that the Sovereign should personally take the team to ensure that the research is safely transported.
I won't let you down,
Stephen said. Thank you. However, I'd like to apologize in advance for what I'm about to tell you. The mission is confidential, and your identity as the Sovereign can't be revealed. There are only a few members of the Leviathan unit who are aware of your identity. There was a pause as Stephen took in their words. He held in the urge to sigh.
In other words, I'll have to continue pretending to be disabled.
We understand that this will be inconvenient for you, but there's no other way.
It's fine. That's all I've been doing every day anyway.
The helicopter arrived at Mirage Island in less than an hour. The escort team was waiting at the helipad. The leader of the Leviathan unit pushed Stephen's wheelchair down the ramp. The escort team was surrounding a suitcase that Stephen assumed contained the research. The team was surprised to see him. There was no one in the Leviathan unit who didn't know who Stephen was. They knew him as the former commander-in-chief who was injured after a duel with Kylan. The leader of the Leviathan unit introduced Stephen to his team. I informed you all earlier that an important member will be joining us on the mission. It's Commander Adams. He will be leading your team. The escort team didn't know what the leader was thinking. Stephen had once been the commander and helped the country win the war against the Alliance, but a lot had changed since then. He was disabled and didn't have the ability to protect himself. This was an important mission. They couldn't understand why he'd been sent over. Was there something wrong with the higher-ups? The team voiced their reluctance. Is this a joke? I respect him and everything, but he's not the same as he used to be. He's more of a burden than a help now. How are we supposed to protect the research and him at the same time? Are you trying to increase the difficulty of this mission? I'm telling you right now that when the mission begins, I'll be protecting the research, not him. Stephen had already seen this coming.
You don't have to worry about me. My mission is the same as yours. Protecting the research is our top priority. If any danger arises, you can just ignore me.
That's easy for you to say, one of the team members said. Anything can happen with a burden around. Can't you understand that? I don't agree with you joining us. The others backed him up. The leader of the Leviathan unit put an end to their complaints. That's enough. The higher-ups made this decision. Yes, Commander Adams is in a wheelchair, but his strategies are second to none. With him around, there'll be a higher chance of success. The leader's orders were loud and clear, so the escort team had no choice but to go along with them. He hadn't said anything that wasn't true. It was Stephen who'd saved the country with his strength and brains. His martial arts were outstanding, and he had a talent for being a leader. He was an incredible commander who led his troops to victory. The escort team was fully aware of this, but this wasn't a war. This was a confidential escort mission. Their team had less than 50 people. If a battle broke out, the success or failure of the mission could be decided in an instant. What was the use of Stephen's leadership ability? He could barely protect himself. On this mission, he was a burden. My task was to bring Commander Adams here, the leader of the Leviathan unit said. I've completed my task, so I'll be leaving. The rest of the mission will be up to you. Without waiting for an answer, he turned around and walked up the ramp to the helicopter. One member of the escort team introduced himself. I'm the leader of the escort team. My code name is Tanner. Stephen gave him a nod.
It's nice to meet you, Tanner.
Commander Adams, I respect you, but you know as well as I do that you're not the same as you were back then. I'd like to ask you a question. What can you contribute to this mission? The escort team was small, and they would be further divided into 5 groups. Tanner was the captain of one of the groups. Another captain, Raptor, interrupted. There's no point in asking. Look at him. Does it look like he'll be contributing anything? It's more accurate to say that we'll be escorting him. I really don't understand. Have the higher-ups gone crazy? Why did they send him over? The third captain, Wolf, joined the conversation. We've been carrying out confidential missions for the past 10 years, and our success rate is 100%. We've never failed a single mission. Having a burden like you is completely unnecessary. Their sentiments were shared across the team. They saw Stephen's addition as a test from the higher-ups. Would they be able to complete a mission with a burden on their team? Our leader said you'll be assisting us with your strategies, Wolf said. So what's your plan?
Can you tell me how you're dividing your team? Stephen asked.
The internal structure of the Leviathan unit was a mystery to him. He hadn't come in contact with them much back when he was the commander. You don't even know that? Haven't you heard? If you know yourself and know your enemy, you can win 100 battles. Tanner, can you explain our subdivisions to Commander Adams? Wolf asked. Our team is divided into 5 groups. Each are led by a different captain. You already know I'm the captain of one group. Our other captains are Raptor, Wolf, Lynx, and Eagle. My group is in charge of keeping an eye on the overall situation. Raptor is responsible for intelligence. Wolf is the vanguard, Lynx is in charge of protecting the rear, and Eagle takes care of ambushes and assassinations. Stephen nodded. Your team is small, but all the bases are covered. Explaining our team's setup doesn't make a difference, Lynx said. You won't be able to participate in any of our groups. The deputy captain of Raptor's team, codenamed Nirvana, interjected. Everyone, stop arguing. The higher-ups aren't stupid. They know what they're doing. If they sent Commander Adams here, there has to be a reason. Let's not waste any more time. Our position could be discovered at any time. Nirvana's right, Raptor agreed. At this point, we should just assume that this is a test from the higher-ups. Before we begin, let me make one thing clear. If a fight breaks out, the research is my main priority. Commander Adams will not be under my protection. The other team members responded in unison. I won't interfere either. My mission is to transport the research. I won't let anyone drag me down. I won't bat an eye even if he's killed. They cast Stephen aside and began to prepare. No one paid him any attention. Nirvana shook his head at their reactions. Compared to the rest of the team, he thought highly of Stephen. He held great respect for him back when he was the commander, and that hadn't changed even after he'd lost his position. Commander Adams, I'm the deputy captain of Raptor's group. We'll be leaving soon. You'll be joining our group. The leader of the escort team, Tanner, began to give instructions. Our mission will begin shortly. Get into positions. Wolf, lead the way. Lynx, cover the rear. Raptor, scout ahead. To avoid being detected, we're limited to traveling by land. After Tanner finished delegating their responsibilities, the escort team set off. There were 5 groups and a total of 10 off-road vehicles. Wolf's vehicle was in the front, while Lynx's vehicle was in the back. The suitcase with the research was closely guarded at the center. Tanner had arranged for Stephen to be in the same vehicle as the suitcase. The message couldn't have been any clearer. He was regarded in the same way as the suitcase. They both needed protection. Stephen didn't care. It didn't matter what the team thought of him as long as they succeeded in transporting the research to Annapolis. Raptor and Nirvana were in the same vehicle as Stephen. They were responsible for guarding the suitcase. Nirvana was driving, while Raptor was in the passenger seat. Raptor glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Stephen with his eyes closed. He was either taking a break or catching up on sleep. See that? He fell asleep at the beginning of our mission. Does it look like he's here to help us? It's more like we're his escorts while he's here to enjoy the scenery. It hadn't been long since they set off for Annapolis. The team was tense and on guard, watching for any signs of a sneak attack. It didn't seem like Stephen felt the same tension. He was relaxed and even sleeping in the back. It's hard to believe that the once invincible commander has been reduced to this state, Nirvana said. When he was at his peak, nothing could stand in his way. I don't think he'll ever be able to recover, Raptor said. Never mind. Keep your eyes on the road. Forget about him. Don't disturb him when he's sleeping. The journey was smooth, and Stephen had indeed fallen asleep. He had a dream about Kim and Valeria. He hadn't seen them since they left home. He missed them. In his dream, Kim and Valeria were taken hostage as a means to lure him out. He tried to save them, but he couldn't make it in time. The warehouse in the dreamscape exploded and went up in flames. Stephen was startled awake. His heart pounded as he looked around, trying to regain his bearings. It took a minute for him to realize where he was. It was just a nightmare, and the explosion in his dream was actually the thunder in reality. They had left Mirage Island and had made it to the nearby city. The weather took a drastic turn. Thunder rumbled in the skies above, and the light drizzle had turned into a downpour. The view ahead was limited because of the heavy rain, so the team decided to take a short break and wait for the rain to lighten up before continuing. Raptor's group looked at Stephen in disdain when he startled awake. This is the former commander? A clap of thunder scared him. If he's afraid of thunder, how's he supposed to protect the research? Our enemy is 1,000 more times scarier than thunder. Why is he even here? Nirvana gave them a warning look. Stop that. He's probably experienced some trauma during his days in the military. It's nothing to laugh at. Raptor shrugged. He used to be the commander-in-chief, but now he's lost his position and he's even confined to a wheelchair. It's normal for his fears to get the best of him. This proves how unqualified he is to lead the team. How can he lead us properly if he's afraid of thunder? Stephen had heard what they'd said, but he didn't say anything. They were members of the Leviathan unit. It was understandable that they were dissatisfied with having a burden on the team. The more they doubted him, the easier it was to pretend he was useless. Having him tag along is annoying, but we're from the Leviathan unit, Raptor continued. We're elites among elites. Our mission will be a success, even with a burden on the team. The rest of the group echoed her confidence. The rain stopped, and Tanner told them to keep moving. The journey on the outskirts of the city was smooth, but the team didn't let their guard down. They weren't safe until they reached Annapolis. They reached the end and crossed over to the next city. Wolf's group in the front and Lynx's group in the rear communicated with one another to coordinate on the way. The coast is clear 20 miles ahead, Wolf said. Lynx followed up with his own report. No abnormalities sighted 20 miles behind us. How far are we from Annapolis? Tanner asked. We're 120 miles away, Raptor replied. We'll be in the safe zone once we cross into Annapolis's territory. Understood. Speed up, Tanner instructed. 1 hour later, their journey was almost at its end. They could already see the city of Annapolis from here. We're 30 miles away from Annapolis, Raptor reported. We're almost there, Tanner said. We can relax once we get to the city. The team was confident. Their mission was close to being completed. No one would set up an ambush this close to Annapolis. The city was heavily guarded. It's too early to let your guard down. Raptor was surprised to hear a voice coming from behind her rather than her earpiece. It was Stephen. She turned around and shot him a glare. What did you say? The burden had been quiet for most of the journey. He hadn't said anything until now, and these were the first words to come out of his mouth. It was aggravating. I said it's too early to let your guard down, Stephen repeated. We're close to the city, but this is where it can get dangerous. What are you talking about? Raptor retorted. Take a look around. Annapolis is a safe city. Who would be out here waiting for us? Are you trying to contribute something since you've done nothing on this whole mission? Her group took turns mocking Stephen. He's disabled, but he insisted on joining us. He must have had an ulterior motive. This is his last chance to contribute. Who does he think he is? He's overestimating himself when he's not the commander anymore. You'd better be quiet if you know what's good for you, Raptor warned. Our group is responsible for intelligence. The area up ahead is a safe zone. You'll be safe once we enter the city. You don't have to worry. When we complete the mission, I'll request a medal for you from the higher-ups. She wasn't the only one who assumed that Stephen was here to get a medal. Her group thought the same. He was the former commander. The higher-ups would definitely agree to Raptor's request for a medal. I don't need it, Stephen replied indifferently. My other medals are more valuable than this one. I just want to remind you that danger can come unexpectedly. Be careful. You're thinking too much. We're not the only group monitoring the situation. Eagle's group double-checked our intelligence. We've concluded that the road ahead is deserted and safe. If you're telling us to be careful, it's clear that you're questioning our abilities. Stephen didn't feel like continuing this conversation. Never mind. The leader of the team is Tanner, right? Call him over. I have something to say to him. A disbelieving look crossed Raptor's face. Are you ordering me around? Stephen looked her in the eye. Yes, I'm giving you an order. The Leviathan unit sent me here to lead the mission. It's normal for me to give you orders. Raptor held herself back from throttling him. She turned around in her seat and faced the road with her arms crossed. I can't be bothered with you. Nirvana tried to placate the rising tension. Commander Adams was invited to be here. We shouldn't start a conflict with him. I'll tell Tanner to come over. Tanner didn't know what was going on, so he stopped the entire convoy and went to the central vehicle. What's happening? Commander Adams wants to talk to you, Nirvana replied. Tanner glanced at Stephen impatiently. What do you want to tell me? We're about to enter the city. Don't make things harder than it has to be. I'm not. I'm giving you some advice. If you want to smoothly reach the city and complete the mission, then change our route and take a detour. It'll be dangerous if we keep heading this way. What are you saying? Tanner demanded. We're about to reach the city, but you want me to take a detour? That would be prolonging the mission for no reason, Wolf said. You talk as if the enemy has slipped past our notice, Lynx said. Are you questioning our skills? Raptor and Eagle are monitoring the situation. The area ahead is absolutely safe. Our mission will be completed once we reach Annapolis and hand over the suitcase. What could happen? The 5 captains didn't take Stephen's warning seriously. Everyone, please trust me, Stephen insisted. I understand you're skilled, but think this through. We have confidential research in our possession, and the enemy's aware of its existence. No one has shown up since we began our mission. Now we're almost in the city, and there's still no one around. Don't you think there's something strange about all this? Your analysis does make some sense, Tanner said. But nothing has happened so far. It might be because we're from the Leviathan unit, so they retreated. Besides, we're almost in the city. They would have to think twice before making a move. Tanner's opinion represented the team. Many members had already started to let their guard down. Annapolis was a safe city. There was nothing to worry about. Stephen tried again. Tanner, please listen to my advice. If you don't take a detour, we'll suffer casualties. Tanner interrupted him before he could finish. That's enough. If you keep disrupting our mission, I'll leave you behind. Stephen shook his head as he watched Tanner walk away and tell his team to continue. If he were still the commander-in-chief, the 5 captains would have listened to his advice unconditionally. But no one took him seriously. Each member of the team was an elite. They were individually skilled, and they had great teamwork. But from Stephen's experience on the battlefield, he was certain that this was the calm before the storm. Their enemy was lurking in the shadows. They hadn't made a move yet, because they were waiting for the right moment. He'd experienced the same situation multiple times when he was in the army. The team was in a good mood at being so close to the city, but Stephen had dampened their spirits with his negativity. Raptor and Eagle's groups had surveyed the area within 30 miles of their convoy. There was nothing out of the ordinary. 20 minutes later, they were close to reaching the end of the 30 miles. The city wall was right in front of them. They would officially be on Annapolis's territory once they entered the gates. Wolf and Eagle's groups reached the gates first. They opened them and waited for the rest of the team. Tanner relaxed upon seeing the magnificent city wall before him. Their mission would be complete once they entered the city and handed the suitcases over to their superiors. They would each receive a badge for their efforts. He went over to the central vehicle and knocked on the window. Stephen rolled it down. "You said this path would be dangerous, but we got here safe and sound," Tanner said. Raptor threw Stephen a scornful look. The mission was supposed to be easy. He just wanted to make things more difficult for us. "If we took a detour, we would have been in danger," Wolf said. "He's useless and a troublemaker," Lynx mocked. Nirvana wanted to speak up in Stephen's defense, but he didn't know what to say about how the situation had turned out. Stephen himself was quietly listening to their criticisms. "Nothing to say for yourself?" Tanner asked. "The danger you predicted didn't happen." "My intuition is never wrong," Stephen said. "I'll tell you again, it's too early to relax." Wolf snickered. "You're really stubborn. Tanner, he's done nothing but inconvenience our team. We are near the city. I don't think we need to keep him with us." "Good idea," Tanner said. "We'll leave him behind and have him get to the city by himself. That'll teach him not to question the Leviathan unit." "We can't do that," Nirvana protested. "Our leader has arranged for Commander Adams to join us on this mission. We'll be blamed if we leave him behind." Tanner didn't want to admit it, but that was true. "Fine, bring him along. But after we get to Annapolis, I don't want to see him again." Tanner walked to the front of the convoy and raised his hand. "We'll be on Annapolis's territory after we pass those gates. Once we meet up with our superiors, our mission will be complete." He got into the passenger seat and sat back, looking relaxed. The U.S. had always been famous for being a forbidden territory for foreign mercenaries and assassins. This statement was more credible when Stephen was the commander, but it still held weight. Nothing would happen here. As the convoy headed to the city gates, the team thought about their plan after the mission. They would treat themselves to a good meal and take it easy for the rest of the day. All of a sudden, Stephen felt a surge in aura. In the next instant, a series of explosions rang out. The first vehicle skidded to a stop from a flat tire. Tanner reacted instantly, but he was too late. Most of Wolf's and Eagle's groups were wiped out. Raptor was in disbelief as she glanced at Stephen in the rearview mirror. He had been right. They'd let their guard down too soon. The 5 captains had been mocking Stephen just moments before the explosions. This was like a slap to their faces. Raptor was still trying to process the situation. This was Annapolis's territory. The city was heavily guarded on all sides. Who would dare set up an ambush here? This didn't make any sense. It was approximately 600 miles from Mirage Island to Annapolis. The weather had been turbulent, but the enemy hadn't made a move even when there was a downpour. They could have caught them off guard, but they chose to wait until they reached the city. "They think it'll be easier to take us down when we're more relaxed," Stephen explained. Unlike the other times when he spoke up, Raptor didn't argue with him. His warning had been correct. Their enemy had been waiting for them to pass the gates. It was clear that they'd calculated their route from Mirage Island to Annapolis. If the team had listened to Stephen's advice and taken a detour, they could have avoided this battle. How did he know this would happen? Tanner's voice sounded from Raptor's earpiece. "What's the situation?" The captains reported their casualties. 3 people were injured and 2 had been killed in Wolf's group. 1 person was injured and another had been killed in Eagle's group. 4 people were injured and 1 had been killed in Lynx's group. "Raptor, is Commander Adams and the suitcase safe?" Tanner asked. "Yes, they're safe." The team understood why Tanner had mentioned Stephen. The Leviathan unit were elite guards who represented the supreme leader. Their superiors wouldn't have sent Stephen here for no reason. He was disabled, but he used to be the commander-in-chief. He could win a battle from thousands of miles away. Right now, Stephen's role was obvious. Their team's survival and the success of the mission were in his hands. Tanner regretted not listening to Stephen's advice, but it was too late for that. Raptor's group will protect the suitcase and Commander Adams. Everyone else, prepare for battle. Under his command, everyone stepped out and surrounded the central vehicle. They were on high alert. There was no trace of their relaxed attitudes from earlier. A masked group revealed themselves and approached their vehicle. They said nothing as they rushed towards him. Wolf and Lynx's group could barely hold them back. Both sides were in a stalemate. Tanner had been leading the team for many years. This was the first time he'd encountered an enemy this troublesome. He could sense their auras. They were skilled martial artists. If this were a one-on-one battle, he wasn't confident he could take any of them down. They were in a stalemate, but he didn't know how long they could last. Laughter sounded behind the masked group. They parted and made a path for 4 elderly men in unusual attire. Raptor recognized them. She was all too familiar with these criminals. Javi Knott, skilled in poisons. Rune Talbot, skilled in weaponry. Flint Breen, skilled in illusions, and Oren Carnes, an all-arounder. They betrayed their respective families 20 years ago. They've made the list of most wanted criminals, and their families issued an assassination order for them. They're ranked in the top 5 on the Leviathan Unit's blacklist. Raptor was a key member of the Leviathan Unit's intelligence agency, so she was aware of confidential matters that the rest of the team weren't privy to. These 4 men weren't just wanted criminals of the United States. Their families had also listed their names as bounty targets. There was nowhere for them to hide, but they'd managed to escape capture for the past 2 decades. Their individual martial arts were formidable, but they were almost invincible if they joined forces. Back then, the Leviathan Unit had sent all their people after them, but they'd failed in arresting them. Their respective families had combined their strengths, but they'd failed as well. That was how powerful they were. The U.S. was determined to catch them, so they gradually disappeared from the public. No one could find them. 20 years had passed since then. Now, they'd taken the initiative to appear. They haven't shown themselves for 2 decades, Tanner said. There has to be someone behind them. What's the plan? Raptor asked. Raptor's group guards the suitcase and heads into the city. Contact the Leviathan Unit and request reinforcements. Eagle's group, cover for them. My group, Wolf's group, and Lynx's group will stay behind and buy time for them to leave. Above all else, Tanner was a member of the Leviathan Unit and the leader of the team. He kept his cool even when they were in a dangerous situation. But he wasn't confident they could take down these criminals. The most they could do was stall for time. Trying to run? Javi sneered. Don't even think about it. If you hand over the suitcase, I could spare you. We won't be handing anything over, Tanner said firmly. Our reinforcements will arrive soon. If you want to live, then leave. Rune snorted. Trying to scare us off? That won't work on us. Us 4 are more than capable of wiping out your team. You want the suitcase? Wolf said. You'll have to step over my dead body. Tanner, Wolf, and Lynx's groups got into position, ready to launch into battle. They knew very well that it was unlikely that reinforcements would arrive in time, nor were they confident that Raptor and Eagle's groups could meet up with the rest of the Leviathan Unit in Annapolis. If they were being ambushed outside the city, there was a high chance that their enemy was waiting for them in the city as well. This could have been avoided if we listened to Commander Adams, Nirvana muttered. Are you implying this is our fault? Raptor asked, annoyed. He was right, but the battlefield is constantly changing. There's no guarantee we could have avoided them even if we took a detour. If he knew there was a high chance of an ambush, he should have explained himself and insisted on taking a detour, Wolf said. He gave up so easily. His irresponsible attitude put us in danger. He's useless when it counts, Lynx said. He really was just a burden, Tanner grumbled. Stephen was dumbfounded as he listened to them. Was this really the time for this discussion? The fact of the matter was that he'd made a suggestion at a critical time, and none of them had taken him seriously. Tanner started giving orders again. Our mission is to protect the suitcase with our lives. Understood? The team responded in unison. Wrong decision, Javi called out. Kill them, he instructed the masked group. Don't leave a single one alive. The escort team had no way out. They charged forward and met the masked group head-on. Tanner could feel it the moment they clashed. They were unevenly matched. The masked group was strong, but the criminals behind them were even stronger. They were outnumbered and outmatched. The suitcase would be taken the moment Raptor's group split from the team. With no other choice, they joined the fight. The team had less than 50 people at the beginning of the mission. Now they were down to less than 10 people. Tanner, Wolf, Lynx, Raptor, and Eagle surrounded Nirvana, who held the suitcase close. Javi sauntered over. I told you, resistance is futile. You're the only ones left. There's nowhere to run. He held out his hand. Give me the suitcase. If I'm in a good mood, I'll spare you. Tanner glowered at him. Don't even think about it. This belongs to the U.S. We'll never give it to you. Nirvana, activate the emergency self-destruct button. Before they set off, the Leviathan unit had told the team that if there was no other way, then they would rather destroy the research than have it fall into enemies' hands. A self-destruct feature had been installed in the suitcase as a last resort. The research was too dangerous to fall into the enemy's possession. The balance of power would shift, and the world would be overrun with chaos. The escort team wasn't told the details of the research, but they did know that whatever was inside the suitcase had to be destroyed before the enemy got their hands on it. Just as Nirvana was about to press the self-destruct button, Rune signaled to the masked group. They threw out daggers in the team's direction. Tanner, Wolf, Lynx, Raptor, Eagle, and Nirvana were hit in the wrist. The suitcase clattered to the ground. You've overestimated yourselves, Rune said, kicking Nirvana out of the way. He lifted the suitcase. The rest of the team tried to stop him, but it was no use. Rune shook them off, barely using his strength, and walked back to Javi, Flint, and Oren with the suitcase. I've got it. We can't stay for long. Let's get out of here. The Leviathan unit will be here soon. They'll clean up the mess. Just as they were about to retreat, a voice called out to them. Wait! They looked at each other before scanning the area. The voice had come from the vehicle. Was there someone else here? That suitcase doesn't belong to you, the voice continued. The four of them considered for a moment before deciding to check it out. They headed for the vehicle at the center. What are you doing? Tanner hissed, keeping his voice low. Do you want to die? Wolf whispered. Now the four criminals were certain that someone was inside the vehicle. Rune told the masked group to open the back door. A young man in a wheelchair was inside. Rune quirked a brow at the man in a wheelchair in the back of the vehicle. You brought a cripple with you on your mission? He's no ordinary cripple, Javi said. I recognize him. That's Stephen Adams. He's the former commander-in-chief in the U.S. I didn't know I was famous among the traitors, Stephen remarked. From the surprise on Javi, Rune, Flint, and Oren's faces, he knew that these four were among the hostile forces he was looking for. Rune recovered from his shock. Who cares if he's the former commander? If he gets in our way, we'll kill him too. He shifted his attention to Stephen's wheelchair. How are you going to stop us? Crush us with your wheelchair? The other three snickered. I'm not just going to stop you, Stephen said. I'm going to kill you. I'll make you leave that suitcase behind. And how are you planning to do that? Rune asked. I didn't think the former commander would turn into such a fool after being disabled, Javi mocked. Even when you were at your peak, the four of us have never been afraid of you. Tanner and the others were stunned at how daring Stephen was. As long as one of them was alive, they could inform the Leviathan unit's reinforcements where the criminals had gone when they arrived. The four criminals were about to leave with the masked group when Stephen stopped them. At this rate, they were all going to be wiped out, and the reinforcements would have no leads to go on. You idiot, Tanner spat. You should have kept your mouth shut. Rune grinned. I'm curious. What's your plan? A disabled person can't do anything to us. Stephen grinned right back. What about a commander who's recovered? Rune's face fell. What do you mean by that? Are you? Yeah, it's exactly what you're thinking. Under everyone's astonished gazes, including Tanner and the others, Stephen stepped out of the vehicle and made his way to Rune. His gait was steady, and his stride was confident. There was no trace of his supposed disability. You weren't paralyzed? Stephen held his hands behind his back and regarded the 4 criminals in the masked group with a smile. I never said I was disabled. That's what you assumed. Tanner and the others exchanged bewildered glances. None of them had considered the possibility that Stephen had recovered and was just pretending. They suddenly realized why the leader of the Leviathan unit had insisted that he join them. He knew that Stephen wasn't disabled. Why else would he want a disabled person to lead such an important mission? Stephen had been their trump card all along. Rune narrowed his eyes. He'd been in hiding for the past 2 decades, but he was up to date with the recent events. He recalled the major incidents that had occurred across the ocean recently. He'd never considered that the former commander might be the culprit. The Stephen that was disabled was nothing to be afraid of, but what about the former commander who had made a full recovery? They say the art of war is as dynamic as the clouds, and war is not against deception, Stephen said. If I didn't pretend to be injured, people like you would never show yourselves. It doesn't matter how strong you are, Javi warned. We've never had a confrontation, but we've never thought of you as an opponent. That hasn't changed. The 4 of them had escaped the Leviathan unit, their families, and assassins. They had never been afraid of the commander-in-chief, even when he was in his heyday. And more importantly, Stephen was alone. He was outnumbered. To their surprise, Stephen ignored their warning. I'll give you 3 options. First, hand me the suitcase and kneel. Perhaps I'll spare you. Second, let me kill you one by one, then I'll take the suitcase. Third, head to Annapolis and surrender to the Leviathan unit. If I were you, I'd pick the first option. That's your only hope at survival. Rune scoffed. I don't think you understand the situation you're in. You're the one in a pickle, not us. He's probably talking nonsense to buy time, Flint said. He knows he can't win. He's trying to stall for time until the Leviathan unit's reinforcements arrive. How clever. In that case, here's my answer. Rune signaled to the masked group. Kill him. They lunged for Stephen, blades aiming for his neck. Tanner and the others squeezed their eyes shut in despair. They'd witnessed the masked group's martial arts firsthand. Their team had almost been wiped out. They were the only ones left, and they had sustained serious injuries. They couldn't even walk properly. Stephen was their only hope. If he was killed, the mission would end in failure. Stephen's figure flashed and charged straight into the masked group. He broke their weapons with 2 fingers. He didn't stop. Bodies fell wherever he went, and blood stained the ground. When the sounds of battle persisted for longer than 10 seconds, Tanner and the others opened their eyes. The scene before them was unbelievable. The masked group had almost wiped out their team were on the ground, and Stephen was standing at the center of the carnage. That meant he was stronger than the entire escort team combined. The feeling of shame surged within them. They'd mocked Stephen for being a burden throughout the journey, but that couldn't have been any further from the truth. Javi, Rune, Flint, and Oren were equally shocked. The masked group was stronger than the Grand Masters, but Stephen had annihilated them in a flash. He's worthy of his past position as the commander, Rune said, signaling for another masked group to step up. But he's only one person. Get rid of him. Tanner and the others' hearts leapt into their throats once again. This masked group was stronger than the previous group. Is that it? Stephen asked. They're a waste of my time. He disappeared into the fray, an array of light. The sounds of weapons clashing rang out, and then there was silence. Only a few seconds had passed. Stephen turned to look at Rune and the other 3. Ready to join in the fun? It's not over, Rune said through clenched teeth. We haven't made our move yet. Stop chatting with him, Oren said. We can't stay for long. Their reinforcements will be here soon. Let me deal with him. He didn't wait for a reply before pulling out a large saber from a sheath strapped to his back and rushed at Stephen. Oren's combat style was violent and wild. He possessed extraordinary strength. His saber weighed more than 1,000 pounds, but he swung with ease. His saber landed on the off-road vehicle at the center and crushed it.
The vehicle collapsed in on itself. Javi, Rune, and Flint watched from a distance. They were waiting for Oren's saber to crush Steven's body like that vehicle, but what happened next almost made their eyes pop out. Steven caught the saber with his bare hand and broke it. Then he threw out a punch without missing a beat. Oren was astonished, but he didn't dodge. He swung his fist and met Steven's attack directly. The impact of Steven's fist broke Oren's arm, but his attack didn't stop there. His fist collided with Oren's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Blood pooled beneath his lifeless body. Javi, Rune, and Flint couldn't believe their eyes. The four of them were martial grandmasters, but Steven had killed one of them off without breaking a sweat. Damn it, Flint cursed. He vanished and reappeared behind Steven with a dagger in his hand. He plunged the dagger into Steven's back, but the moment it came into contact, the tip of the blade blunted, sending a numbing recoil up his arm. Flint was shocked beyond words. Was Steven's body indestructible? Steven turned around. Is that it for your tricks? Sneak attacks were the most lethal weapon upon first use when the enemy didn't see it coming. Flint had failed, so he'd proceeded to vanish in a blur of illusions. But Steven was faster. He grabbed Flint's neck and snapped it in one smooth motion. Flint dropped to the ground, dead. Two of the most wanted criminals had been killed in the blink of an eye. Javi, Steven's out of the league, Rune said cautiously. Take the suitcase. I'll cover for you. Javi didn't hesitate to pick up the suitcase. Got it. Take care. He retreated just as Rune threw out his needles, but they missed their target because Steven had disappeared. Where do you think you're going? Rune whipped around. Steven was standing right in front of Javi. Steven flashed a grin. Why so surprised? I'm just faster than you. Rune threw out a barrage of silver needles. Steven didn't move an inch. He held out his hand, releasing a wave of energy. The needles changed direction. Rune was caught off guard and had nowhere to run. Thousands of his own needles turned his body into a sieve. He died instantly. Javi clutched the suitcase tighter and ran past Steven. Where are you running off to? Steven spun and landed a kick on Javi's torso, sending him into the air just as he lost his grip on the suitcase.